Today I'm going to talk about models you may not know but should. So, quick show of hands, how many people here only use ChatGPT or OpenAI models? Only. Okay, that's like a lot of people, right? A good portion of people. And that's totally okay because OpenAI makes some really great models, and they were probably one of the first companies to make generally usable models. But what we're going to talk about today is a lot of people think GPT-4 might be the best available model today. And that's great that we have such a highly performant model, but GPT-4 can be a little bit slow, and it can also be really expensive. And so we're going to talk about models. So first thing, why does picking a good model matter, right? Why can't we just use GPT-4 for everything? Second, where can we go to test models, right? Third is going to be, we're actually going to compare and see how different models perform against each other. Then we're going to talk about how to make smaller models perform like bigger, more expensive ones. And then lastly, I'll just give you some practical takeaways that you can bring into work on Friday and start using AI. And there's no excuse why you shouldn't be using AI tomorrow at work. Okay, so really quick background. I'm Leon. I've been building AI products for the past 8 years. I had a voice AI company a few years back that I sold, and now I run Amplify Intelligence. And so we do AI adoption workshops. If you want your team to adopt AI and save hours per day, I can help you with that. We build agentic workflows, which are smart workflows with AI. And then we also do model optimization. So if you're an LLM-powered product, I can help you write your prompts and pick the best model for you. So why does the model matter? I think that you can think of AI like a lever, right? What does a lever allow us to do? Use equivalent force to move a bigger object, right? But not all levers are made the same. Some might be made out of titanium, and some might be made out of plastic or wood. And so the model is kind of like the material of the lever that we use. It has different characteristics that inform what the lever itself can actually do. AI is our lever, and the model is the material that gives the characteristics. So why shouldn't I just use the biggest model for everything? That is general consensus. First, when you're building an LLM-powered product, just use GPT-4 for everything, and if it works, just figure it out later, right? Well, what if GPT-4 is way too expensive? You're probably never even going to try to make an LLM-powered app for that specific use case in the first place if your first model you use is way too expensive. Additionally, some models that are really big are not able to do things that smaller models or specialized models for special use cases can do. So a lot of people think of it like a tree, right? The biggest model can do everything. And then a slightly smaller version of that model can do just slightly less of that. But that's not actually the case. They don't completely overlap. So we shouldn't just use the biggest model for everything. So where can I find the best models? How many people in here have used OpenRouter? Okay, this is great. At least we're teaching people something. So OpenRouter, in my opinion, is where you should be doing a large portion of your AI model work. OpenRouter.ai, and it's just an interface for all the models. So instead of paying $20 a month to ChatGPT and $20 a month to Anthropic and $20 a month to Google, and then running your own open source models on your machine, I'm sure all of y'all are doing that, or your own servers. Obviously, no one is. OpenRouter just has all of the models, open and closed source, in one interface. This is really powerful because if you take a look at the interface, you can see I sent a message, just like you would to ChatGPT, to 3 different models from 3 different model providers. And so now, in line, I can start to get a feel of what each model is like from a style perspective, from a tone perspective, from a, hey, this model just really doesn't have a good knowledge base about, this type of thing. So OpenRouter has all the models. You can change and set the system prompt. You can change the temperature, the sampling parameters. You have ultimate customization, and it's all priced at cost. So instead of paying X dollars a month for some sort of capped usage in a web interface, OpenRouter has an API and a playground where you're only charged for the messages and the responses you generate. So if you want to save money and be able to test models at their true functional potential, OpenRouter is the place to be. And then you can actually use OpenRouter in your production application if you want. And the cool thing about OpenRouter is if you're using an open source model, they actually route to different infrastructure providers. So you have infrastructure redundancy, both in the sense of you can swap out models for other models with one line of code, but you can also swap out infrastructure providers underneath the same model if one of them has downtime. Once again, with one line of code, and you're not having to have a relationship with 8 different providers and money's just sitting there. Cool. So when we're testing, what are we testing for? 1, performance. Can this model generate what I want it to? This is kind of the fullest extent of a lot of people's casual testing. But the other thing is speed. Like I talked about, the bigger the model, typically the slower it responds. And if we're just having a one-to-one conversation with the user, maybe that's okay. But if we're trying to chain together a series of LLM calls, it might take 10, 20, 30 seconds, a minute for that whole workflow to happen. And as everyone here knows, a minute of wait time is unacceptable on almost every application. So then you either have to, send the user somewhere else and send them an email later, which obviously kills your retention. But that is kind of makes the whole point of this presentation for me is if we are able to use smaller models to get better performance, we can build more complex workflows. And the common term for those complex workflows of LLMs chained together is agents. That's just what AI agents are. And the whole goal of AI agents is to do work for us, to get computers to do work for us. And so hopefully you can see picking good models and understanding what model to use for what use case is actually the unlock for AI agents today and into the future. And so the second part of that goes hand in hand with speed is cost. Smaller models almost always cost less. And then lastly, reliability. When we're testing these smaller models, are they high variance at certain temperatures? Do they sometimes not perform our threshold? Or are they just as reliable as bigger models? We need to know all those things. So which models should I use? This is probably just, the next slide is probably what you all came for, right? So we can see here, great, it's plenty legible. We've got performance on one axis and cost per million tokens. That might be a foreign thing to you because OpenAI typically does it in cost per 1,000 or 100,000. But we have at the top right Claude Opus. In my opinion, this is the highest performing LLM for general purpose use cases. But we see it's $75 per million tokens. That's expensive, but if you're just chatting back and forth, it's probably going to take you a while to get to 1 million tokens, right? Because a token is ballpark one word, let's call it. So you're not going to send 1 million words for a long time. But let's go all the way to bottom left. Wizard LM27B. That sounds like a crazy name, right? This is an open source model. It's fine-tuned by Microsoft, actually. 7 cents per million tokens. That means for $7, you can generate 100 million tokens. And that should feel like a lot because it is a lot. And so what would it mean for our economic use cases if we could get Claude Opus level performance at 7 cents per million tokens? It would mean a lot for us, right? It mean we basically have free unmetered intelligence on demand. And hopefully what I'm trying to say today is we're scratching the surface of that already with the models today. A couple other models that I want to draw your attention to. Gemini Flash, I'll talk about in a second, but that's a great model. And as of today, that slide is out of date because Google has slashed the price again. It's even cheaper than what's on the slide as of today. So these models are getting cheaper, but their performance is getting better. So GPT-4o Mini is another really high-performing model that costs you basically nothing. And so hopefully what you can take away from this is 2 points from this slide. One, there's many more models that you should be experimenting with, right? You should be experimenting with all of these models and figuring out if they're right for your use case. But two, I think there's a common assumption that every model pretty much costs the same. And what we see here is there's actually a very big spread and disparity on how much models cost. And when you're in a real production environment, this graphic matters a lot. Okay, so I've got 5 techniques for you, and these are all links. And so I have a QR code on the last slide that will take you to the website, and if you click AI workshops, it'll take you to this deck where you'll be able to click into each individual link. But I'll talk to it real quickly. So number 1 is the Claude prompt generator tool. So this tool is great at just making your prompts better. It's the number 1 tool I would recommend if you need help doing prompts. The second one, and if you only take one thing away from this presentation, multi-shot prompting. Go into Claude Opus or Sonnet 3.5 and generate 3 to 10 examples for your example use case workflow. Then go into GPT-4o Mini, use the same system prompt, but give it those examples. And then see how close GPT-4o Mini performs to Claude Opus. And if it does, you're in a really good place because, you know, I just reduced the cost of your application significantly. Next one is Prompt Engineer. This is a GitHub repo that just programmatically does what I just said. So if you're a developer, you can basically just like do this, generating synthetic data to do this process. If you have a real production use case, OpenPipe is a YC company that allows you to easily fine-tune models. If you need to go even further than multi-shot prompting, you can fine-tune models with OpenPipe. And then lastly, Cohere, who makes Command R Plus, that model, they have a prompt tuner similar to Claude's prompt generator tool as well. So these are 3 models that I would love it if you went home tonight and tomorrow at work and just gave a try for 3 totally different reasons. So for all the people using OpenAI models and ChatGPT only, go to claude.ai and try out their Sonnet 3.5 model and see what you think. And I'm pretty confident that you will be very impressed and probably just go ahead and switch. It is the most plug-and-play, high-quality, general-purpose model available today. And like I said from a couple slides ago, only $15 per million tokens, so it's not that expensive. Gemini Flash, like I mentioned, this one is really cheap, but what makes it special is it has a 2.8 million token context window. Now, context window basically just means the amount of tokens that you can put in the system prompt or in the initial message or in the full conversation. Now, 2.8 million is about 10 times bigger than what most of the other large models have. So you can load up literally hundreds of pages of a PDF into Gemini Flash and ask for analysis, ask for a summary, upload an entire book, right? Call transcripts, anything. Gemini Flash is great for that, and it's super fast and super inexpensive. And then lastly, Wizard 7B, like I talked about, is a similar type of model to Gemini Flash, but even cheaper. But with multi-shot prompting, it can write stories or do creative writing, or for educational use cases, it can be incredibly powerful at generating quality articles and information for next to nothing in cost. So just to wrap up, how can I start using AI today? 3 easy ways. 1, use AI to make better plans. If you've got a project spec or an action plan or a big project that you're trying to plan out, just use AI and ask it to break it down into smaller tasks. Ask it to put it within the context of your meeting schedule. All these things are possible. Number two, this is the biggest gold mine for LLMs. If you record your calls, you get transcripts from those calls. If you get those transcripts, you can instantly generate action items. You can generate responses to sales prospects. You can ask, hey, I think that at some point during the call, he said something about X, Y, and Z. Find that, and it'll pull a quote from you. So you can do all that within the first 5 minutes after you get off the call, and now you're adequately prepared to go take action from a meeting, right? Which is shockingly rare sometimes. And then lastly, I would say use AI to explore new ideas more deeply. A lot of people think that AI is not creative, but if you go in stream of consciousness style and have conversations with it and say, I'm trying to be creative, I'm trying to create something new, create something no one else has ever seen before, you will have totally novel creations with AI. So take a picture or do whatever. Please reach out. If you attended this, please send me an email. I expect to get 20, 30 emails from all of you just saying, hey, send me an email saying one thing that you learned from the presentation or one thing that you wish you learned. I'd really love to connect with each and all of you. And like I said, scan the QR code. It'll take you to the website, click AI workshops, and you'll have the link to the deck. Thank you.